So every time I said, I hope no one passes away or dies because I will be the first one to see it. And that's exactly what would happen to me. So in the end, after so much time dealing with this, it was a really complicated process for me because I was a 5 or 6 year old girl who truly felt very strange. I was telling you that what was said in that interview you did with Kisha, it was very revealing for me because it's the first time I feel that someone says something that also happened to me. I've seen some terrible sessions on social media, really terrible, of people telling a mother who lost her child because the child made the decision to leave, saying atrocious things to her. So I ask myself, how can it be that these people say things that aren't true, that aren't from the other side, that don't feel that way?
Hello everyone and welcome to this new episode of Fuera de la Matrix en lo Invisible. And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Aida. I've had the pleasure of meeting her not long ago since she's part of a transsensorial perception training that I'm leading. She is a medium. So we're going to talk about these topics and discuss a bit about her life and how she manages mediumship. Aida, welcome to Lo Invisible.
Hi, how are you? It's a real pleasure to be invited. Thank you, Esteban.
No, there's nothing to thank me for. Aida, what was your childhood like? What were you like as a child? Did you perceive things as a child, or is it something that started happening to you as an adult? What was the experience like for you?
Look, the first experience I had was when I was 5 years old. It was an experience with my grandfather. And I basically witnessed his death, his passing, his departure. I witnessed how he was in that room. The house was very small and there was total chaos regarding what was happening to my grandfather. And well, at that moment someone grabbed me and I made eye contact with him while he was in the process of passing away. And he was kind of gesturing for them to take me away because he didn't want me to see him like that. The thing is, someone took me, I don't remember who, from what I recall, at 5 years old about that specific experience. And that's when everything happened. Afterwards, I saw my grandfather in a coffin and my mom was there. She had fainted. I mean, it all happened within a really complicated family context that I didn't understand at all. But on the second day or the day after this happened, we were going to take my grandfather to the cemetery but that night in the early morning I felt a presence, and when I woke up and looked ahead, my grandfather was there, okay? And the crazy thing is that I saw my grandfather, I was like, I don't get it, because I saw him in the coffin and my mom had explained to me that he had gone to heaven. So I didn't understand why I was seeing him. So it was a communication without words. It's something I felt very, very deeply. And he told me to tell my mom that he was fine where he was now, okay? It was crazy because I also saw like a glow around him. Maybe it was an aura, but it was like this, something yellow that I saw. And that was the very first experience I had with someone who had passed away. It was actually my grandfather. I think that from what I've discussed with mediums, most experiences are with family members first, with relatives who have passed away. That happened to me with my grandfather. And then I kept feeling I saw my great-grandfather whom I never met and who also terrified me to see. So it was a very complex process, almost like the movie The Sixth Sense.
That's what I was going to ask you. When you saw your grandfather, were you scared? Were you afraid as a child?
What I did was, I don't know, because at that moment we were all feeling complicated, my mom and dad. And I slept together, right? I was in the middle. And the other two were on either side. I tried to wake my mom up and she didn't wake up. I tried to wake my dad up, but he didn't wake up either. So I felt that this was a message meant just for me. I mean, 100%. So now as an adult, understanding what happened to me, right? And at that moment, I sat up in bed, I saw him, and it was this kind of communication that was very intuitive, very deep inside. No, it's not something I could explain at such a young age, but I felt that he was okay. What I didn't understand was why he was in the car, in that box or in that coffin, and I was seeing him on the other side, I mean, standing there. That's what I couldn't wrap my head around. So it was a really complex experience for me to understand, coming to terms with this thing of seeing the deceased. He was the first deceased person I ever saw, the very first.
Did you see him at the foot of your bed, like right in front of you?
Exactly.
And did he look like flesh and bone, like the way you see me?
No, he looked a bit translucent. His image was super clear. I could see his face, his expressions, but he even smiled and did the same things he used to do when he came to see me when I was in the bedroom or in my bed. He would the way he positioned his arm, and he always made a sound with his mouth and laughed. That was just what he always did, and he showed up doing that. So the next day when I told my mom, she clearly didn't believe me. So that's the first thing that started happening.
Right.
In the experience I had, right? Then there was another one. For example, inside the house as well, my mom had a cane that belonged to my great-grandfather. And I would see a gentleman holding that cane, wearing a hat. In fact, I told her the physical characteristics I saw in him. And my mom said to me, "But that's impossible. He's your great-grandfather." I told her this as an adult, because I kept it to myself back then. Since the first time they didn't believe me, I thought, okay, I won't say anything.
That usually happens because you also start to question yourself, and in your case, for example, your parents didn't believe you right from the start. In my case, since my issue was hearing voices, for example, my mom got scared because she thought it could be some kind of psychiatric condition. That's why she took me to the doctor and all that. That it's actually something quite common among mediums to have these kinds of experiences as children, but usually as kids, we don't understand what's happening to us, and it usually scares us. I was scared by what was happening to me, and I didn't like what was happening to me.
Absolutely. I felt the same way. Why me? Why me? Why not my mom? Why is it me? So this was a process between mediumship. Is like when you first start with this, it's very intense at times, and sometimes it eases up a bit. So those first moments, which were during my childhood, I experienced them that way, with fear, afraid to walk through certain places or looking into rooms, so I could get through without seeing anyone. So every time I would say, I hope no one passes away or dies because I'll be the first one to see them, and that's exactly what would happen to me. So in the end, after so much time dealing with this, it was a really complicated process for me, because I was a 5 or 6 year old girl who truly felt very strange. I was telling you that what was said in that interview you did with Kisha was, for me, very revealing, because it's the first time I feel like someone is saying something that also happened to me. I mean, looking at my mom and dad and thinking, it's like I feel they're not my parents, or I don't know why I'm here if I don't belong here. There were so many things I felt when I was 5 or 6 years old. So,
yes, that's something that's actually pretty common for kids, for mediumistic kids, I mean, who don't really feel like they fit in. For me, what happened was that I felt like I didn't understand why I was in my body, and I always thought of my body as a house and my eyes as windows. Then why do I have to be inside and can't go out? It was something that made me feel anxious, when I was a child.
Absolutely.
Hey, but all of this, when you're a kid, you usually don't, you don't have any idea that it's mediumship or that you're connecting with a spirit. You don't know, you don't understand what's happening to you. But obviously, now you do this for a living, and well, now you do understand it. How did that happen? What happened? How did you discover your abilities as a medium? Did you say, this is mediumship and I am a medium?
Exactly, yes. Throughout my life, this happened in my childhood, but then it kind of calmed down a bit, and in pre-adolescence it came back much stronger, and at that point it was terrifying. I mean, I didn't want to sleep with the lights off. I would turn on all the lights in my house. So no, for me it was practically torture. Not sleeping at night was terrible for me. So I said no more. This is how it happened. I handled it as best I could. I would ask questions, but no one knew, no one understood. Like those questions you suddenly, I don't know, you talk to a friend, hey, has this ever happened to you? No, never. So I started thinking, maybe it's my problem, and maybe I need to see a psychologist, or something is happening to me because I hear things, I fall asleep to the murmur of a lot of people. Sometimes I can make out things like laughter, crying. It's like having a lot of people around, and at night, obviously in the calm, in the stillness of the night, because the night is so silent, but almost too much so. So that's the feeling it gave me. Time went by, and I never said, how do I figure this out? I really liked medium shows. In fact, I watched a lot of Sebastian Diaz's medium show on TVN. I watched it a lot, and I would look at them and think, maybe the same thing is happening to me, because it seemed like everyone said it was the same. But who do I go to? Who can help me? Where do I go? Where do I turn? Who can tell me that this is what's happening to me? So, over time, later I got married. And in this situation of not being able to sleep with the light off, I can't sleep with the light on. So, of course, there was a topic where Aida told me, I can't sleep with the light off, where that is on. And I told her, well, I can't sleep with the light off either. So in the end, for me, it was a whole story. I started to cry because I explained, I never told anyone this. I never told anyone, it was something very deep inside me, very lonely. So later, when I explained it to my husband, Eduardo, he said, love, you have to go out and look for answers. You can't always be like this. The thing is, I tried to look for mediums, but some I didn't like, others just didn't connect with me. It's like, I don't know, you always have to look for something that more or less fits you. And at that moment, a training came along that actually, if you ask me now, well, I don't know if those trainings are really that good. I don't know if they're that good. But I think it's the only place where maybe you can understand why this is happening to me. If there are more people,
or talk to other people who are going through the same thing.
Exactly.
Because I imagine it happened to you too, that when you feel it as something very natural within yourself, whether you like it or not, it's something that just feels very natural. But when you ask someone else, the person kind of looks at you strangely, like, no, that doesn't happen. And it's like, and that's where the clash, the tension happens, right? It's like, but I feel this so naturally. It's so strange that it doesn't happen to other people. I mean,
exactly. And that was my search, because in the end.
And this was, how long ago was this, more or less?
Oh, look, I started to understand this because maybe I was given some tips about what I could do, but I really started to experience and understand how this worked with myself when I joined this training, and they explained to me there were other people there who were just like me, and others who had nothing, who were only there because they liked the paranormal and things like that. I came looking for answers, and that was my concern, the answer to why this was happening to me. And when I managed to understand it, it was during an introductory session. In that introductory session, they did a first real session with people I had never met before, and that's when it hit me, bam, in my head. And I said to myself, it can't be that this is happening to me. I mean, that's when I realized that I didn't have to ignore it or hide it or say, okay, this is happening to me. It's real. It's real. This is real. And that's when I started to understand communication itself, how things would come into my mind, how I don't know. I mean, at that moment I was saying, how can this be happening to me?
I was just about to ask you that if you remembered the first experience you had once you understood that it was mediumship. Well, you just told me. And I was going to ask you, how do you handle your mediumistic experience? How do you perceive? What is your way?
How do I perceive? Look, at the beginning, when I had just started, it was like having the Wi-Fi on all day, like the antenna was up everywhere. And when I felt someone arriving, obviously, from this other place, from this other plane, it was like this sensation of having butterflies in my stomach, or like a feeling in my chest. It was something strange that I felt when I sensed there was someone there. That happened to me at the beginning, but like I know this evolves and we change, so mediumship changes too. So at first this would happen to me very often, this feeling of being restless, of feeling my heart, like when you see someone you really like and it gives you that feeling. That's what would happen to me. And I knew that there was someone on the other side trying to communicate.
You realize that usually when people start out, setting aside childhood and adolescence, when they're already adults, for example, and they understand and begin this, that tends to happen. Like there's a bombardment until you learn how to handle it. Or it could also be that since it's an experience, quote unquote, like taking on something new, maybe you also unconsciously become more receptive. That could be it too.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely, yes. But it's really complex.
Would you be able to share, I don't know if it's possible, right? What is the most significant experience you've had as a medium? The one that has impacted you the most, maybe?
As a medium, look, I have several sessions that are like super emotional. Now when I connect, now that I've done a lot of sessions, I do sessions every day. What I do is try to set my own emotions aside so I can enter only as a medium. I mean, I need to leave behind all my own kami, all my own earthly or micro stuff, go back so I can do a mediumship communication. You have to be able to connect with the beyond. That's what I always do. Once there was a session with a Mexican woman who came to connect with her daughter. I did the session for her, and a very, very young girl appeared, about 13, maybe 14 years old. So yeah, but this little girl, she was only coming for one child,
Right?
For her daughter. But right next to her, another little girl appeared, and when I saw them, one was very tall and the other was very short, and they were holding hands. So that caught my attention. I said, there are two little girls there, one about 13, more or less, and the other must be around 10 or 11 years old.
Just to understand, did you see them in front of you, or did you see them like an image inside your head?
Exactly, here. They always appear to me here. It's been a long time since I've seen them projected.
Like projected in the physical space in front of you, right?
Very rarely. But now since I do sessions, they're all like here, like in the third eye, so to speak, inside, And I already described her, and she tells me that it's her daughter. And I said to her, but there's a little one next to her, and the two of them were holding hands. So I even saw those little painted fingernails, like kids' nails painted. In fact, one of the girls used to paint her nails. And she tells me that's my daughter. And I asked her, and the other little girl, because they were together, and one was holding the other's hair, and it was like they were both there. And she tells me, that's my niece. So I said to her, that's why I saw her as about 11 or 12 years old. A bit younger than her. When I communicated with them, they made me feel that they were doing very well on the other side, but that there was a need from one of them. Like she wanted to ask her mother for forgiveness. This feeling of wanting to say, "I'm sorry for what I did, Mom. I'm sorry for what I did." It's like I was getting a very deep intuition, because these messages feel like, I don't know, like something inside you that you just have to say. So when I talked about that, of course, the mother was obviously moved, and, well, this little girl had committed suicide. There were also things that happened at school that I told her about, like seeing a girl who would hit her in the bathroom and treated her very badly. She told me that she was bullied at school, but that wasn't the reason she left. She left because of a rape. She left because of that. She was abused. So, when I was in that communication, the same thing happened to her as well. She took her own life.
That's intense, really intense.
Right? It was two little girls, and they're cousins, two cousins. It was her daughter and also her niece. And what she made me notice is that later, when I started the session, a name came to me, Juan. Then she told me he was the one responsible for my daughters taking their own lives. And I mean, that name just came to me, you know. So when I was doing the communication, this man was the one who had abused these little girls. So it was very hard for me because I have daughters.
That's what I was going to ask you. How do you deal with the emotion, right? How do you feel after such an intense session?
I try to understand that it's not my story. Even though it's my daughter, I have a daughter, but I try to separate myself from it, to say, okay, this happened, it's not my story. I try to give the family the reassurance that their loved ones are doing very well on the other side. But when I was doing this communication, she told me that the guy who had done that was Juan. And while I was doing the communication, I felt the presence of that man right next to me. And not just here, but right here.
I see.
So I was so overwhelmed by the situation itself that what I did was tell him that I didn't want to talk to him. Yes, I don't want to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to you. And that was because, of course, the emotion I felt, and obviously, besides being a medium, some sessions really leave a mark on you. So that session was super complex because all the people who come from the other side, from what I feel, always come to ask for forgiveness for something they did. There's always an apology from the other side. There's always a retrospection about what they did with their life. And these people always come to say, okay, I'm sorry for what I did, but in this moment, I just couldn't let him into the session. And that's when I didn't want to talk to him and kind of blocked him, so I could focus only on the communication and on what the two little girls wanted to say to their mom and their aunt, who was one of them. So that one was really intense. It really stuck with me.
It must have lasted quite a while, right?
Absolutely. So it was a communication that, of course, afterwards, whenever I finish a session, it's not my story. So I usually go to the bathroom, wash my hands, and try to keep my hands under the water for a while to release the energy so I can go out and take care of my daughter. And that's when everything shifts for me. I mean, it's always not my story. So I try not to hold on to the feeling.
Yes, that's an issue, a really big issue for people who work in mediumship. Basically, you're exposed to a lot of stories, in a lot of intense accounts, and you have to have that ability to distance yourself a bit, from the experience.
Absolutely, yes.
Aida, what happens to you when you can't make a connection? How do you deal with that? Because, people need to know here that mediums don't always make a connection. Sometimes we can't connect with someone, even if we want to. How you see it?
Exactly. Look, I always tell my clients that I can't guarantee you a connection. because it all depends on many things. In my experience, for example, with what I've done and the work I've done, I'm really like, no, how could a session not work out for me? There must be something that didn't go right. So what do I do as Aida the medium, huh? What I do is reschedule the session and I set it for a month later, okay? I do them again and they work perfectly. That's why sometimes when people tell me that the medium is responsible for not having connected, I don't really feel that's the case. Many times what I found is that people come in with a different idea of what it is. The energy of the people sometimes makes it so that the session can't flow as smoothly as the ones I usually do. So when I reschedule, people come in much more open and the sessions work perfectly.
So do you think that deep down, the client has an influence on the experience? That depending on how the client is, the session either works or doesn't work? And have you ever thought that maybe on the other side, they might not want to come, or maybe they just can't come, and that's it? And that in a way doesn't really depend on us? And also, we're not machines, and sometimes we're just not as perceptive as we are at other times. I don't know, maybe something happened, you're stressed, it just doesn't work. That's it. I think people need to be clear about that, right? You're not always, going to connect, you're not always going to make contact, and you're not infallible, you're not a connection machine.
No, of course not. No, and like you said, this has a lot to do with this has to do with energy. We are energy and so are they. So there has to be a synchronicity for a mediumship session to happen. Everything has to be very well synchronized in order to establish communication. But what I've always felt in these communications, as I was saying, is that I've never felt, for example, someone who maybe doesn't want to come through or doesn't want to talk. It only happened to me once.
Right.
When you kind of try to, and the gentleman is just like this. And that's when it gets a bit complicated. But in other cases, in almost all situations where the session isn't flowing smoothly, what I do is reschedule and do it again, and it works perfectly. That's why I say there must be something in the energy, because the second time everything goes really well, and the evidence or the things that need to be said just come out, but incredibly smoothly.
Or maybe it's just a matter of timing, that it just wasn't the right moment. Who knows?
Could be.
I tend to think that no, a kind of experience isn't determined by the person consulting, at least one. That's how I feel. Now, what I do understand is that there could be a client who wants to connect with someone and that person has nothing to do with it. Let's say there's no connection or it's not relevant, you see? If that happens to us in our daily lives, for example, in day-to-day life, you might have contact with someone and then a third person comes along and they say, hey, could you set up a meeting for us? Well, maybe the other person isn't interested in going to the meeting. It's the same thing as before. That's how I feel when there's no deep connection, when the bond only goes one way, That's what I tend to understand. That's how I feel. Aida, do you think that everyone can be a medium? Or if someone studies to be a medium, will they end up becoming one or not?
No. Look, I know that mediumship is something that some people have since they were children. Like me, it was always present in my life. And I didn't know it was mediumship. I just felt the presence of people who had passed away. But I feel that within these training courses, there are people who don't have any mediumistic ability at all. Nothing. Their sessions are, I think, more psychic than actually involving a third party or a deceased person. So, as I was saying, the thing is, for people who do have this extrasensory perception like I do, where do you go to be able to understand what is happening to you? Of course, and that's exactly it. That's what you say. What do? You go to these training courses to try to help within that framework.
If you don't know someone who is a medium and could guide you, because for example, the girl who is a friend of ours, she didn't take any training, but through my sister she came to me, and I sort of guided her and invited her to my sessions, and that's where she started to really understand.
Exactly, because it's complicated. I mean, I didn't have anyone close to me who had the same experience as I did. So clearly, you have to seek out information in order to understand what's going on in your own head. Now, I take the best from that. I take the best from each experienced medium. For example, like you, who have been a medium for a long time. I take the best, right? But from there, it's my own experience. It's about how I feel, how I work, what the experience is like, what I sense from the other side, which is the implicit message I want to deliver to people. I believe they come to help us move forward, to keep us from getting stuck in one place, to help us progress.
I feel the same way.
That's why they come, not for anything else. People always want to know things. So I always tell them, it's not about what you want to know, it's about what they want to give, what they want to share. So in this communication, it's them who are going to speak, and they have a much broader perspective than we do. So clearly, they're the ones who have to tell us. Now, a lot of people come looking for advice.
And what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that? Do they give advice or not?
I think they give a message, advice to follow your life, but whether you sell your car or your house, or if you marry your current partner, that's your own experience.
That's right.
That has a lot to do with our earthly matters. That's from here, not from there. So if things go wrong in your marriage, you have to solve it. You know what I mean? I don't think anyone on the other side ever came to tell a deceased person how to live their life either. We all have free will and we decide what to do. So those are the kinds of questions people usually ask me during a mediumship communication, and they end up missing the important message that maybe their loved ones are coming to deliver.
That's true, yeah. And you know, I also understand that on the other side, they are extremely respectful of free will. They don't interfere with that because they understand it's part of the process. And the idea isn't for them to cheat in what they have to learn. That's how I see it.
I also say this, it's absolutely what I feel, that from over there, they're allowed to help up to a certain point, maybe give you a little help, but not to the extent of solving your life for you. Or for example, if someone has a car accident and at that moment that person is meant to go, they can't get involved. That's how I feel.
That's right. That's right. And you know, it also happens that those on the other side don't come when, for example, someone wants something from the mediumship experience, but what they're hoping to get from the other side doesn't align with what they need to learn here, or with the stage or process they're currently going through. So it just doesn't work because they're not going to come through that way, since it's not beneficial for the client, the relative, or the person seeking a mediumship experience in that way.
Absolutely. I've had people become obsessed with wanting to know where the money was left.
Yes, that's happened to me too. It never works.
I mean, mediumship sessions aren't for finding things out. They're for being able to feel your loved one and to understand that they're okay, and that they come to see us when they want to, that they don't miss us, that attachment doesn't exist over there at all. We're the ones who have attachment. I mean, everything related to these deceased loved ones is really just to say, hey, don't worry, I'm fine. You go on with your life. Keep living as you need to. I no longer have that option. I'm here and I understand absolutely everything now. And you have to keep moving forward so you can continue with this life experience, with its lessons, with its mistakes, just as life is, right? But the thing is, did they resolve something, or that they say, or people My clients always ask me if they're always with us, and that's not the case either.
Yes, of course. They wouldn't have a life of their own.
Absolutely. So, as you said, they're respectful, absolutely respectful of people's free will. They don't interfere here. They don't interfere. So I think there's a lot of misinformation about what mediumship really is, even though there are many people who talk about it, like Dr. Manuel Sanz Zagara, whom I really admire. There are a lot of people who talk about everything related to this other place, how it works, what it is, but people are completely misinformed about mediums as well, as if we're a bit overrated in the sense that they think we know everything, and that's not the case.
Exactly. That's what I completely agree with that. Has it ever happened to you in sessions that people come in and they have like 3 questions in their head which they keep as tests for you, waiting for the answers to come up or things like that, just to test the medium with something? Do you know what I mean? Because that's happened to me, And 2 things have happened to me. I've had sessions turn out to be incredible because I've told them unbelievable things that were actually their secret questions.
Yes.
But I've also had times when I didn't mention those things and the sessions were still amazing, but because of that, they didn't really appreciate it. It's really strange. People kind of, they sort of test you, don't they? Sometimes.
Or like, if the name doesn't come up, then it's not real. You get what I mean, right? So
no, of course, that too.
There's a lot of misinformation about what mediums really are in society, and we've been like so discredited, so to speak, or there are people who aren't mediums and who are the ones profiting from people's pain, and they're all over social media talking about things that I have never ever felt from the other side. So of course those people have those bad experiences and think we're all the same, so they lump us all together, and that's where the disbelief and all that comes from.
I was just going to ask you that regarding how you see the evolution or the social perception of this topic, specifically of mediumship, given that it has become so widespread on social media, and there is a lot of information on social media. How do you see that?
Well, look, in my case, I do post sessions with my clients on my social media, obviously only with those who give me permission. Those who don't, I would absolutely never post them on my social media. But why do I do this? And I know that some mediums disagree with it for that very reason.
Like me.
Right? Like you.
But it's free will.
Absolutely. Yes, of course, I understand that. I mean, that's why I say I agree a lot with some mediums, and with others I don't, and that's how you end up forming your own experience of what mediumship is, and that's just how it is. In my case, yes, I do it, but I don't do it out of ego or because I want to get a lot of likes or anything like that. No, that's not it. That's not it. What I want is for people to understand what a medium session really is.
A gem.
What it means when the deceased show you in your mind, so to speak, the images that come so that we can interpret and feel what they're telling us and then convey it to people in the best way possible. So that's what we are. We are simply communicators. We don't have a superpower. We don't know everything. No, I mean, it's just an ability that allows us obviously to understand what comes to us from over there, so we can convey it to the client in the best way possible, and so they can validate the information with their own memories, right? Because I only have part of the story. I don't have the full context. It's impossible. I don't know you. I always tell you the same thing. I don't know you, nor do I know your deceased loved ones. So in that sense, when I when I include excerpts from my sessions, it's precisely for that reason, so that people understand what mediumship really is and don't get carried away by what other people. I've seen some terrible sessions on social media, just terrible, where people tell a mother that she lost her son because he made the decision to leave. They've said atrocious things. So I ask myself, how can it be that these people say things that aren't true, that don't come from the other side, that don't feel that way?
Of course. And besides, there's no empathy, right? Given the situation.
Absolutely. That's why I say we need to show ourselves on social media. We need to try to, so that people understand that this is a mediumship session, that this is a communication and nothing other than that, okay? Or for example, someone imitates the voice of a child when they're connecting with a child.
Right. I don't know. You know what happens? I never watch sessions. I don't like to watch them because I feel kind of embarrassed, you know? It's like, I don't know, it's something that makes me uncomfortable. That's why I don't watch sessions on social media in general. So no, I don't have that experience. At some point, sure, I have watched TV shows a long time ago, but but on social media, no, because I never liked them. I mean, the times I have watched, I don't like them. So what's the point? The other thing I was going to ask you is what do you think, for example, about TV and television, and how it has portrayed mediumship and mediums? What do you think about that, which is also an influential medium, maybe less so every day, but still?
With technology advancing every day more and more, that doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. Actually, what I do feel is that there are people who claim to be mediums and who, I don't know, I just don't get the sense that they really are. I'm not going to name names. Obviously, it's not strictly necessary to do it on television, but I don't think it's a bad thing. It's not bad for a recognized medium, for a real medium, someone who truly has the gift, who knows what they're doing, who holds sessions, who does sessions with people, to be able to show that on a television channel. There's no problem at all with television programs, with things that... That's where I started. That's when I began to watch these well-known mediums who appeared on TV. And I thought, okay, one of them I actually had contact with, and the others, like Tyler Henry, like those mediums like John Edwards. I mean, there are many mediums. And if you pay attention, if you bring them all together or look at each one, we're all saying the same thing. It's like, it's the same situation. We connect differently, we receive different things because each medium has their own ability, but in the end, it's the same. In the end, you realize that it's basically the same perception and the same communication we have with the other side, but when it comes to social media and television, it doesn't make me feel anything. Nothing at all. Nothing complicated, I mean. It doesn't make me feel anything.
Hey, and what do you think, for example, about other types of mediums? Nothing to do with how you or I might be, you know? I'm thinking of like Umbanda mediums, or maybe Santeria mediums. I don't know, like another kind. It's a different type of medium. It's very different. What impression does it give you? What do you think about that?
He doesn't look at me either, huh? In the training I had, it's like, I don't know, it's like they had a bad intuition about what spiritism is, right? Yeah, spiritism itself or something else. I think that mediumship is so broad that I have no problem with other mediums maybe connecting in a different way or feeling things differently, or doing, for example, this kind of incorporation, because I've also seen corporate mediumship, and that can happen too.
For those who don't know, incorporation is when an entity basically takes control only of your body and expresses itself through you, and you lose awareness of the experience and become sort of detached.
That's exactly what it is. And I've seen it in some documentaries that have shown these monks or these Brazilian mediums, which is very much related to that, like incorporating, leaving their own self and kind of getting wrapped up in this. And it can be, I haven't experienced it myself. You've had more experience with them, but as I said, I don't have any kind of prejudice or anything like that. We're all different. There are different types of mediums, so as I said, I have no reservations about that. I'm absolutely open.
And besides, at the end of the day, each person is going to resonate with one type or another. With one person, they'll empathize more or not. No, maybe there are people who empathize more and resonate more with mediumship. That's, I don't know, more spiritist, for example. I mean, of course, kasi, because there are millions and millions of spiritists in Brazil, for example. And that's why when I sometimes hear people here in Chile speak badly about spiritism out of ignorance, I'm like, no, they have no idea about anything. I mean, they've never been in that environment. They don't understand how it works or how deep their work can really be. Besides, let me tell you, even though I'm not a spiritist myself, and I actually disagree with spiritism on many things, that doesn't mean I'm going to disparage it. On the contrary, I have a lot of respect for it.
And in the end, of course, it's a very ancient form of mediumship. Spiritism has been around for many years. Yes, absolutely.
And also, it's been very thoroughly studied, and it's not like spirits do things the same way they did 100 years ago, right? That's both also just another kind of prejudice that comes from ignorance, basically.
Exactly, that's right. But like I said, I had an experience with those Brazilian doctors who, through a medium, I had an experience like that because it was actually my own father who went through it. Yes, absolutely. And from that moment on, I said to myself, no, anything is possible, even though I experienced it with a lot of fear, because at that time I still had this sensitivity, and in fact I sensed them in my house when they came to operate on my father's heart. Yeah, that's how the story went. Incredible. I mean, I still remember. I must have been about 19 years old when this happened. And I could feel the doctors who arrived at night, and you could hear the water from the bottles. I don't know if you've noticed, but they ask you for water in bottles. I heard all their whispering. It was terrible. I was like this. I mean, I was the only one awake in my house. Everyone else was kind of drowsy. Look, they all fell asleep.
Maybe there was a reason for you to be awake. Of course. Hey.
And
from your experience as a medium, do you have any idea what life after death is like? What is the afterlife like? Do you have any idea? Even if it's just an intuitive one?
Intuitively, yes. Look, in all the connections I've made with these people who pass away, I feel that I don't know. What we have is an avatar that allows us to exist in this physical plane. In fact, the movie Avatar really resonates with me.
Right.
Yeah, because it's the same thing.
Yes.
So when this avatar
That's true.
dies, right? Because it gets sick or for whatever things happen in life, this consciousness or this soul, it's like it goes to this other place. And I always tell my clients, this place is like right next to us. It's just a little door that separates us, and they can come here whenever they want, but we can't go there because we still have the avatar. So when I explain this to my clients, I always tell them that they always want to bring us peace. They always want to give us lightness, you know? I don't want you to hold on to how I left. I don't want you to keep the last image. I don't want you to remember me that way. I don't want my death to define my entire life with you, okay? I'm here to tell you that I'm okay, and that you need to continue on this physical plane and in this physical experience because it's your turn. I will be there to accompany you when I can, and when I can obviously come to see you, but I won't interfere with your free will. I feel that those on the other side are super wise, really, really wise, and they always come with the message, but it's so explicit for the family so that the family can let go of that
But do you see that on the other side they live in a physical space, or do you not perceive it as physical? No? How do you feel it?
I remember once I had a session and I even saw this person. It was a woman who approached, but it's like, let me see. I'll tell you, because it's like in a movie. It's just like that. I don't know if you've seen Ghosts.
Yes, I saw it many years ago. Yes.
There's a part when they come to get this person who has to leave. You see it as a place where lots of people come close. That's kind of how I feel it is on the other side. There are many people, a lot of people. And among these people, your relatives are there too, your family members. Many times they've shown me their heaven, for example. I don't know, I would see a person in the countryside with flowers, with greenery, with tall grass, with all of that. And the clients would tell me that she really loved the countryside and that it was a specific place where she loved to be. And that's how I saw her on the other side. Long hair, barefoot, and wearing a white dress. Because this person had taken her own life. I mean, she chose to leave. And that's how I saw her. So what I feel is that, like, if you love the sea and you love the beach and you love that place, you'll see them in that place as if they have their own heaven, so to speak.
So
that's how I feel.
Like deep down, they live in the ideal place for them, let's say, wherever they feel like being.
Like that space is created, exactly.
And do you believe in reincarnation, for example? What do you think? Do you have any idea? Do you have an opinion about that or not?
Yes. Look, here's the thing. I don't know. I don't know much. Just the things I see, the documentaries you watch about reincarnation. But I think anything is possible. I do think so. But I feel like you decide, you also have free will on the other side. There's also a kind of free will where they ask you, do you want to come back, or do you want to stay apart on this plane, continuing learning, reaching a different level of consciousness? And it could be that other people say, I don't want to continue because I missed out on this. It's possible. So, like I said, I don't really know. I don't know much about the subject aside from the documentaries that I've seen. But the truth is that with how wonderful this other place is, I don't rule it out at all. I mean, it's most likely that it has something to do with past lives and with things that maybe in those documentaries there are children who come with people who have passed away, and that there are reincarnations. I mean, it's documented that way.
And that there are records of that can later be verified, let's say, of the places where he lived, and even with very specific details, there are quite a few cases.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely, yes.
Have you noticed that most people who aren't mediums, who don't, I mean, like regular people, assume that mediums didn't believe in reincarnation, they take it for granted. They always say things like, oh, reincarnation, I don't know what, as if assuming that
exactly
you share that view. And not all mediums believe in reincarnation, just so people know. There are...
Exactly.
Do you think, for example, that mediumship or someone who is a medium is only a medium, or do they have other abilities in potential, like to develop or enhance?
I think so. I mean, I think that mediumship and everything I've learned in your field, the course I'm taking with you, has a lot to do with the psychic side, you know? And I had an experience recently, something I hadn't done before, and it's very much related to this psychic topic, right? And that's when I understood. I said, oh, that's how it is. We can activate the psychic side when we need it, and we can activate mediumship when we have mediumistic sessions. So there are many times when I get photos from people asking me for help. Usually I tend to give them to another friend, you know? For me, Alejandro del Rio is always the best. So I refer them to him because he has much more experience, right? But when they sent me a photo from someone who needed urgent help, I looked at it and thought, I'll send them Alejandro's Instagram in a bit. But then, look, something happens very intuitively. It's like intuition. So I opened WhatsApp, saw it, and said, I'm going to help her with whatever comes to me, whatever arrives. I looked at the photo and felt that this person was alive.
Okay.
And I already felt that I was alive and that I had a mental disorder. Schizophrenia. Exactly. Very wrong, very wrong. I was going around in circles, going around completely lost. I don't know where I am. And then it hit me that I had gotten lost in a place where there was the subway. Buses, trains, it was like people taking their subway or their transportation to be able to go home. So I told the girl, I sent her a voice message. I would never charge for a session like that. I mean, I help. That name was my way of helping. And I did it through WhatsApp. I sent her a voice message. The girl completely confirmed the information, and she had indeed disappeared in that place, and I told her she was going to show up. And I felt it very intuitively. So suddenly I started to think and wondered, was it that this just came to me? Or did the photo give it to me? Or maybe someone from the other side told me she was going to show up and that it would be around Christmas, if not a few days after or a little before. But she turned up right at Christmas. So that experience really stuck with me. And that's when I understood and said, okay, yes, it's possible. This psychic side does come out when you want to help. And I think it also has a lot to do with some extra help you get from the other side. I feel that sensation, yes.
I see it that way too. And do you feel that, for example, the information came to you from the person themselves or from a third party on the other side, or was it purely intuitive? How was it for you?
I didn't feel any third party. For example, I couldn't say that someone deceased was telling me something. But when I saw the photo, the first thing I felt was life. Just life. And I remember you did an interview where the medium, the psychic, said that feeling life and feeling death was basically the same thing. It's exactly the same, but look. So that's the sensation I got. No, she's alive, and she is. And that's when those images of where she was started coming to me. Like I said, I'm really just starting out. I mean, I'm a total beginner. I don't have any experience with this, but wanting to help and seeing how desperate the girl was, I tried to look at the photo, and the information started coming to me, and that's when I told her. And this was confirmed because the girl told me, Aida, thank you so much. My aunt turned up, and it just so happened to be Christmas.
I have the
impression. I feel it like not as a third person, but as if the photo gave me a lot of information, and I focused on the person's eyes when I started receiving all the information I got.
There are people who say you have to go in through the eyes, the gaze. Hey, I have the impression that, for example, mediums can develop psychic abilities and can end up enhancing their psychic abilities. But I get the feeling that not all psychics can end up being mediums. Do you understand? It's like if there's a gap there. Yes. What do you think?
I have the same thought as you. Like I said, there are people who do sessions, and I see them on social media, and they're very concrete facts. Do you understand very well? How can I put it? Hard data, like you say, like something that doesn't have a story, that doesn't have
a narrative.
No, there's no narrative.
There's no depth.
No, of course not. What happened with that? Even though mediums also sometimes I get, for example, evidence that's super like that, and I try to ask the person I'm connecting with, a deceased man or woman, what is this about? And there isn't an answer. I say, okay, I have to say it because that's how it is, and it will make sense to them. And when I mention this object, they start laughing because it was an object that was very, very identifiable with the deceased. So that has a lot to do with what my unit is. But sometimes I see on social media sessions that really lack depth. That's why sometimes I tell you that yes, it's very mechanical. Not all mediums exactly, not all psychics are mediums. Mediumship has to do with a sense of presence, feeling that this person, this being from another place, is approaching essence and sending you information.
And that there's a story and a message behind it. And that message is usually meant to heal, to help, to go beyond.
Absolutely. Beyond. It always has to be there, beyond the evidence. I'm one of those people who needs 20, 50, 100 pieces of evidence. Yes, I know they're there, but what else? Right?
Of course.
What else?
No, I always think that with 2 or 3 very concrete and specific things, you can get in, and then you don't need to keep looking for that. No. It doesn't make much sense there.
It doesn't make sense.
Hey, and what do you think? For example, I don't know if you have those kinds of experiences. You know how there are mediums who connect with guides or masters and have that way of practicing mediumship. How do you experience that? Do you have guides or do you not have guides? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I probably do. There might be. There is help from the other side. I've seen several mediums who do have it. Alejandro del Rio, for example, does have help from the other side, and so do several other mediums. But me...
Because before they used to say no, that it wasn't right anymore.
He discovered some help. It could be that they show up at the moment you... And that's what I sometimes wonder about, and I ask myself, what would it be like to have help from the other side? Who could it be? I don't have that. I mean, I haven't had someone tell me something about this person, about this deceased person. That doesn't happen to me anymore. It's like I feel I connect directly with the deceased. At least for me, no. I don't know if maybe later on, because like I said, this keeps changing. Sometimes I see it and I can describe the person, sometimes I can't. Of course.
Hey, but beyond that, beyond the mediumistic experience, there are mediums who basically have a bond or have contact with their guides, even outside of a mediumistic experience itself. It seems that for you, that's not the case. Hey, does it suddenly happen to you that in contexts that go beyond the scheduled session of the experience, you have a kind of mediumistic connection in another context? For example, social or whatever? Has that ever happened to you? Does it ever happen to you or not?
Yes, it happens to me all the time. Because now I've learned to close myself off. Obviously, I set my boundaries low. I tell myself, okay, I'm going to the supermarket and I'm going there to shop, not to see or sense the deceased. But it has happened to me on some occasions when the spirit is very powerful energetically.
That's right.
They kind of get into you, right?
Exactly.
And you say, oh, and I start to feel uncomfortable. It's like that feeling of being uncomfortable and focusing on a person because I get fixated on them. And I say, Ike, that message is for her, but I'm not going to deliver it because I always tell them, if you want me to deliver this message, you find a way, make this girl come to me. Because she was working. And what if I tell her a couple of things and ruin all her work? Or, I don't know, I try not to do it. I have had experiences, for example, with a grandmother, a great aunt of my husband, whom I didn't know, and on this phone, she tells me, what a shame, and that's all she says. And I feel the grandmother next to me, and I started giving information, and it was the grandmother, and they were taking her to the cemetery, and she was communicating.
Yes, sometimes I'm not really into sessions like spontaneous ones, but I have had experiences, and usually it has to be very intense. It's like very intense, and there has to be something very specific. And sometimes the stories come together in a really magical way. Yes, those things that are just so incredible, right? Like suddenly these synchronous situations happen that you just, from a rational perspective, you just can't really understand them, right? And suddenly you feel someone and someone shows up and that person is meant for that person, but you think it's already over. You say, no, 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 that person, someone I don't even know, and the person stops, comes back and sits next to me. It's like everything is set up so that why do you have to deliver that message?
Of course, yes. Look, people always ask me, for example, how long do you have to wait before communicating with someone who has passed away? They always ask me that and everything. And some say you shouldn't wait 10 days because you have to wait for them to be promoted. And it has a somewhat religious connotation. And the truth is they come when they want to come. And it doesn't matter. Of course, it doesn't matter if it's been a week or 2 weeks since they passed, or a month or 2 months. The issue of waiting, and I always explain this, is for the people who are grieving. Not everyone is ready to have a mediumship session. Exactly.
But the
Grief, the pain, of course, everything that comes with mourning. It's impossible to have a mediumship communication. If you want to force it, I mean, if you're determined and feel that you have to do it, maybe it's possible, but as for the time since the person passed away, honestly, for me, I've listened to many mediums and I say it's not like that, because the sessions that happen spontaneously without being scheduled sometimes involve people who passed away just a week ago.
yes, yes. To me, I always recommend waiting more than 8 months. But I do this mainly because, and this is my personal experience, in general, before 8 months, my experience is that it tends to be more confusing and less likely to make a connection. On the other hand, after that amount of time, I feel that things flow better. And since people are grieving, if the session doesn't work on top of that, it's kind of counterproductive for the person. Of course, there are always exceptions to the rule. I've had amazing sessions that work the second day, third day after the game. Yes, but that's not the most common thing. I make that clear to people who want to have an experience with me. What would you recommend to someone who is thinking about visiting a medium? I mean, what are the tips here? What should that person look for when choosing one medium over another?
I think you have to look at everything. We all have intuition, right? Right? Sometimes it works well for you and sometimes it doesn't. But what I feel is that if I have a session with a medium, that medium has to resonate with you. It's like it has to make sense to you. You have to feel it in your gut. You know what I mean? And obviously, try to see their work if you can, like their sessions, because in the end, that really shows you what a medium is like or how they are, not other things. Like sometimes people talk a lot. For example, they say a lot of things, but when it comes to actually doing a communication, it's very flat, right? I mean, what I always feel is that if a medium has social media, the idea is that they should reach you. That medium should make you feel what mediumship really is. If there's something that's not right, like, I don't know, connecting with Michael Jackson or Selena, on social media, you kind of lose focus on the real topic exactly. So, no, that's not it. There's something more that you have to understand, like what mediumship really is. That's why I always, when my clients come to me, I send them an audio explaining what it's about, how it works. Even if the audio is long, even if I have to take the time, I make sure they understand so they know what mediumship is and what mediums really are. But I would always advise them to look at the work, to really see if it connects with you, if it connects with your emotions, if it connects with your gut. If you feel that this is the person, then go for it.
So basically, if you resonate with that person,
Exactly. If you resonate.
you feel like there's some kind of empathy there. Yes, I think that's key. You have to listen to the soul, so to speak, and also do a little research on the medium, because in the end, it's like when you go to the doctor. If you're looking for
Yes.
a specialist doctor for something, you're going to look into their resume a bit, or who they are, or that kind of thing, right? And And also, beyond whether they post videos on social media or not, but because people do post videos, but they're always going to post the best moments, and that also creates a kind of distortion. More than anything, I think what's most important in the end is word of mouth. I mean, if someone tells you about and recommends a person,
Absolutely.
that's the person. If someone recommends them to you, that's the person.
Yes, exactly. Yes, actually, a lot of people find me through my social media, but they also come because someone recommended me, and they come with that. Yes, absolutely.
For me, it happens that since I don't, I mean, well, yes, I know there are 2 videos of mine, I think, of sessions on the internet, but you know, most people come to me through recommendations, like word of mouth. That's like, I've realized that's what happens the most. How do you deal with skeptics? That's an issue. How?
It's a big issue, right?
Yes, of course. Because we, I mean, for people, no, all of us are normal people who have normal lives, have neighbors, have a history before dedicating ourselves to mediumship. For that reason, there are people who knew us from other things that have nothing to do with this. You know, me, they knew me as someone who was like a merchant, a businessman in the automotive industry. I mean, nothing to do with this. So those people, obviously, who have other interests and a different perspective, might think that I went crazy, or they might think they don't believe anything I say. So it's an issue. So it doesn't really affect me much, you know, but I understand that it's an issue for all mediums. How do you deal with that?
Yes, of course. Look, you know what? In all the time I've been doing sessions, I do sessions every day. I do 2 sessions a day. And yeah, I used to work in a public place, in a public service. I met people, right? I'm a business administration engineer, which also has nothing to do with this.
Right.
With what I'm doing now, nothing, absolutely nothing to do with it.
A lot more down to earth, huh?
Exactly. So no, I didn't manage to make those things happen because I don't know. I think I just studied that degree for the sake of studying, not for, well, because everyone really expects you to have a degree, right? Your parents' society, so that's what it was. But honestly, the people I spent time with, the people who were close to me, they were surprised.
I see. Your family, I imagine your friends.
Absolutely. Everyone believed me and everyone knew. Actually, I even did sessions for them.
Okay, got it.
So, like I said, for me, it hasn't been a coming out of the closet like, wow, in a bad way. There are people who book a session with me to see, to find out, but who don't believe in mediums.
Right.
You know? But it's maybe the person coming from the other side to tell them things is so powerful that in the end, those people end up giving in. Like saying that there's no way you could know what you're telling me. Do you get what I mean or not? I try to get them to tell me something that really makes sense to them, that resonates with them and helps them understand that there really is someone from this other place coming to let us know they're okay and that they know what process we're going through. So generally, I haven't really had that much experience with people who don't believe me, so no. Luckily. Maybe elsewhere, but within my circle, absolutely not. Everyone tells me, I can't believe it, you never told us about this. No. I was never going to talk about it at work or at university or anywhere, because I didn't even know what was happening to me.
Also because there's a social stigma, which is obvious, especially if your jobs are more structured, right? Yeah, there's a social stigma. That's clear.
Yes, although now it's not as bad. It's like things are changing a bit. But still, there are people who don't believe you.
I don't know. I think if you're not connected to the world of science, it's hard to say you're a medium, for example.
Absolutely. Of course.
Hey, if you could go back in time, so when did you realize you were a medium and start this new way of facing what you were already experiencing and understanding it, right? Would you change anything? Is there anything that you could say, like I should have done this differently, or maybe, I don't know.
The truth is that in terms of what I did to find my own way, because I arrived at a certain place, but in the end, it's my own way. I didn't just stick with what that training gave me. Instead, I searched within my sessions for what made me feel something. And from the experience I had, I held on to that. So, honestly, no. I don't really have like something, just to put it that way. I don't know that I held on to. I look for the experience from the training I did, and really I don't regret or think I could have done this, I could have done that. Honestly, no. If I do something wrong or if something happened, I always say, okay, it's a learning experience, you know. I always look at it that way, and once I've learned from it, I don't repeat it. But in this case, I think I was so desperate to understand and to have people who could relate to me that I looked for whatever was most accessible to me. And from there, what I did was not just stick with that uncertain training, but rather follow it to the letter. You know, I'm grateful to them because they made me understand what it was, what was happening with this communication. I am absolutely grateful to them. For me, Eva Marchant was one of the people who helped me the most. Absolutely.
I know her.
Absolutely. And I thank her for that. But I also don't agree with everything she says. Just as I don't agree with... like I said, I take the best from each person. And that's what I add to my life, you know? That's what I add to my life. And from that perspective, I live my mediumship in my own way and with what I feel from the other side. That's it.
For me, if I could go back to the past, I think I would try not to be so closed-minded and prejudiced about the subject, like I was for maybe the first 5 or 6 years. But at the same time, I shouldn't judge myself too harshly because I also came from a certain mental framework, so I was really closed off and a bit prejudiced. And deep down, I think that delayed all my processes until at some point, you know, you change.
Yes, it's a learning process. Like I said, it happened to me too. It was hard for me as well. It was the fear that a session wouldn't work out for me. Like, what am I going to do? My hands would start sweating. But in the end, understanding yourself as a medium, understanding how your own experience works, that helps you relax a bit and start to flow in a different way. That's what I more or less managed to figure out. And now, sessions no longer make me as nervous as they did when I first started.
Oh, I still get a little nervous about the sessions, you know, just a little bit. It's like the uncertainty of what's going to happen. Yeah, for me, it's inevitable.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
How has your life changed since you dedicated yourself fully to mediumship? What was your life like before and after? How has it changed? What do you take away from it? What do you like about it?
I think I would never change what I do. I don't think. It was engineering or anything from before. But this really made sense to me. It made a lot of sense because I had this within me since I was very young. And I didn't understand it. Understanding it was a tremendous liberation for me because that's when I realized there was nothing to fear, that there was no terror anymore, that it's not bad, that I'm not opening any kind of portal like people used to tell me. So, for me, this has been a wonderful experience. I believe that mediumship and communication with this other place is pure magic, is absolutely. And the peace and the ability to help those people who have carried a thorn in their heart for 10 years, and then after having a session with you, you tell them it's not like that. And poof, the relief they feel. Allowing them to continue on this physical plane in peace, without that thorn constantly pricking at them, I think that's the best part. It's the best, and that's what I loved about it. I'm trying. I'm a medium who doesn't have 20 years of experience, but I do love to learn, and I think I'm going to keep taking courses, training in different things to keep researching and also to know to know more about the subject. That's what I want. It's like, I don't want to stay here, but rather to move forward, to learn about myself and from mediums who are a bit more experienced in what mediumship is, but that's what I do. So,
and also to open yourself up a little, because beyond mediumship, there's potential for you to grow in other areas as well.
Of course.
Like psychism, which you were already getting a bit involved with.
What we're looking at now, absolutely, yes.
Aida, is there anything you haven't told the community or the people watching this video that you would like to share?
What I feel is that, really feel that you don't need a medium to be able to connect with your loved ones. I feel that everyone has the ability to sense our loved ones by clearing away all the noise we have from day-to-day life, work, family, jobs, I don't know, problems. People always ask me if I can do another session, and I always tell them, for what? The truth is, no, it doesn't make sense. If you've already had a communication, you know your loved one is okay, you know they're fine, and that they want you to keep being happy, there's no need to do another one, right? We can't depend on mediumistic communication or on a medium. But I feel that all of us can connect with our loved ones, everyone. My dad passed away 5 months ago. I haven't had a mediumship session with him. I don't know if I will, because I feel him in every time I remember him, boom, I smell his scent, I hear his laughter, I feel his personality. So I think that people they're not open to connecting with this spiritual side, but instead what they do is try to have someone else confirm what they feel. There's always a need for confirmation behind it, and people need that. It's like a need to seek out a medium in order to connect with that person. So from what I do, I believe that anyone can absolutely connect with them if you open yourself up and feel what comes through. Absolutely.
Yes, and for the kids watching this video, never become dependent on a medium, because it can happen. It can actually turn into a kind of addiction to mediums or to mediumship. So you have to be careful with that.
Exactly, yes.
Aida dear, as we wrap up, how can people find you?
I have my social media, Instagram, era.medium, TikTok, as well, era.medium. You can find me there. My phone number is on my profile. People contact me through WhatsApp, so I always reply patiently, because I have a lot of people who message me, both on TikTok and on Instagram. So you have to be very patient with me, so I can, because I am my own secretary, my everything, I do it all myself. So, those are my social media accounts, and my number is also on my profile, so you can find me there.
Aida, wow. Thank you so much for being here with us on Outside the Matrix of the Invisible.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I loved it. I enjoy talking about this topic, so thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.